Do you like what we do here? I would assume so if you're listening to this. We have had a good year for growth this year. We've had substantial growth on all the podcast feeds with new subscribers. We have the new YouTube channel with a bunch of new subscribers there too. But we want to carry this over into 2026 so we can continue to provide high quality entertainment, high quality news, high quality reviews, and all that kind of stuff. So what we're asking for going into next year is, if you have the ability, we're not asking for a lot, you can donate. Go to ko-fi.com/MWP News and make a donation. Everything you do goes towards making sure we can do things. That way I can take days off work to go and cover things early, or, things of that nature. Go to events and talk about them early, see advanced screenings. All that stuff goes into that budget. On top of that, if you can't afford that, and I realize right now things are tough and things are rough out there. If you can't afford that, the easiest thing you can do is subscribe and rate. No matter what you use to get this podcast, you can subscribe. Just hit the follow button, hit subscribe, whatever the button is on your thing, and then rate us. Give us 5 stars. That'll help more people find us, and the more people find us, the more we can, the more we'll be able to do, and we'll be able to get more happening. You can also go to mwpnews.com and sign up for our newsletter. There we will have articles and stuff like that about what we cover on this show. And we will also be doing more gaming content on the YouTube channel. If we can get, with more subscribers on there, we can do more. And that's youtube.com/@MWPnews. And again, thank you for a great year for us. Next year will be better. One of the big issues that I had this year that preempted me from doing a lot of what I wanted to has been resolved with the issue with my car, and that issue has been resolved. So going into this next year, we should be a lot more smooth sailing, but we do need your help to get more people listening and get what we're doing here out there. So just subscribe, tell your friends, and if you have the ability to, and you have the money, and you want to, and you think we're doing a good job, and we've earned that, go to ko-fi.com/MWP News and throw us whatever you think we deserve. And thank you, and enjoy this episode. Good morning, and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. It is May. We are trucking right along on the road to Doomsday. By now, the trailer's out. I'm recording this the week of CinemaCon, where they showed off the trailer for the first time. The one where you get the fight with Mystique and Yelena and a bunch of cool things like that. But by the time this goes up, that trailer will probably be out for public consumption. I would assume they put it out real time last week, because my assumption would be, and this is just me taking a guess, that they want this to be released. They want this trailer attached to both their big main movies, Disney. They have Devil Wears Prada 2 to start out the month, and then obviously The Mandalorian and Grogu in a few weeks. So they're definitely going to want it before The Mandalorian and Grogu, because that's just how they operate. But I have a feeling they're also going to want it before Devil Wears Prada 2 for that crossover audience, and that's what I think is gonna, by the time this episode goes up, I think we have the full trailer has been released for public consumption, and maybe in the next episode of this we'll talk about it, although we'll probably just have an episode of the regular show talking about it. But besides all that, we're here to talk about Iron Man 3. We've now entered into Phase 2 of the MCU. The Phase 2 goes from Iron Man 3 after the Avengers all the way through to, that was a left on red. Who would have thought that was a legal maneuver? All the way through Ant-Man. Ant-Man is the last movie of Phase 2. First movie of Phase 3 is Civil War. So, here we go. Iron Man 3, I think, ages better than I originally disliked. I remember really, really not liking this movie as much, but it is substantially better than Iron Man 2. And I would say, depending on the day, you might be able to get me to make the case that it's as good as Iron Man. I think Shane Black directs the fuck out of this movie. He does a great job of just, giving this movie its own kind of unique feel that is kind of a little bit unique. I like the fact that it set it at Christmas, and even though the movie did, if I remember correctly, come out in May. Yes, it came out the same year as Thor: The Dark World. And it's an interesting what's it called? It's an interesting movie, all in all. I don't love the kid. The kid is not someone that I particularly am like, yeah, this is why I enjoy watching this movie. And that whole sequence does get a little long, even though I do love the rapport that Robert Downey Jr. has with this kid. Yeah, dads leave all the time, don't need to be a pussy about it. And then the whole thing with the, because we're connected, and then he just drives away. Like, him being a dick to the kid is the funniest part. And I think that it does work for the movie. Just the kid's a little bit annoying. Setting a good amount of the movie of him without the suit is kind of an interesting choice. I mean, I really like where they put Tony in this movie. This idea that, like, he's afraid of what's coming because he has now, like, they actually do a really good job of threading through Tony's story across all the movies. Because, like, the Tony we're introduced to is someone who's like, I have to make the world safe because he almost died, and he lives that out by being, the world needs to be made safe. I can't do, I can't, my weapons can't be used for this, and all of that. So we end up in Iron Man where he's doing that, and then he's dying, and then here we are after the Avengers where he went out into space and on Earth fought the Chitauri, and now he's dealing with this thing where it's like, oh shit, it's not enough to protect the world from itself, I need to protect the world from everything else out there that's going to, come in and try to destroy it, because there are aliens out there. And, with nefarious, plans, and I need to protect them from that too. So we get the beginning of the Iron Legion here, the idea that he's going to, build a bunch of suits. He goes from, like, the Mark 8 to the Mark 38 in just this one movie, or 37. 37 is the one he gets up to in this movie, and you get a lot of really cool designs, a lot of really cool suits that do really cool things, that have some cool things. They all kind of die pretty quickly, but it's kind of cool. Iron Patriot I can do without. Like, I like Rhodey in this movie. I'm not a huge fan of the Iron Patriot suit. And I think that's just, I'm not a huge fan of, like, the American flag aesthetic on the suit. It's not a great look. And it's just kind of an interesting choice. But what I'm looking at here in this movie is like, the real thing that I'm kind of hit or miss on is the ending. I'm not a huge fan of, Pepper coming in and saving him at the last second, because I don't think thematically it fits, because Pepper doesn't save him from himself in the movie, and the two of them are kind of separated for a good amount of the movie, like Iron Man 2, where it's like these two characters, they have great chemistry in Iron Man, and then they get together, and it's great. But it's just like the ensuing movies after this just do a terrible job of keeping these two characters physically in the same room and on the same page to the point that they are able to really develop that relationship. So it's a lot more contentious than anything. It's kind of like the relationship ends up feeling a little toxic a good amount of the time, which is kind of a shame. But it is, there are some, like, the sequence looks okay, but, like, the issue is, like, her coming in and saving him should resonate in some way with the plot. That, like, the idea that, like, I guess you can say it's like, oh, well, he can't do everything himself, so he needs to have someone else save him. And that could just be the theme of the movie, but they don't do a good enough job of threading that through either. Because by and large, for most of the movie, he does everything himself with the help of Jarvis. And it's just kind of a weird thing that's going on. It's an interesting conundrum. And, like, it's a philosophical question. Because, like, that's the thing about setting up a good third act. And I feel like this is something that, a good resolution to conflict. If you're going to resolve conflict, one of the important things you have to do is make sure that the way the conflict is ending up is also reflective of whatever internal conflict is going on within the character. Tony needing to be rescued by Pepper isn't mirrored by the interior of what Tony's dealing with. And Tony does need to let people in, and Tony does need to do that. So her coming in and saving does kind of a little bit do that. But we don't get enough of that threaded through the movie. And I think if that was threaded a little bit more carefully, that would make that ending work. And this doesn't even get into, like, we haven't even gotten into the whole Mandarin twist, which I think works a lot better than a lot of people gave it credit for. I think it's an interesting choice that they went with, to have the Mandarin, not be not actually be there, and we do eventually get the real Mandarin in a later movie. But the idea that, like, it's an actor, and it's being used as a false flag operation, so that way Aldrich can get his extremists, sold, and and destroy Tony Stark at the same time. It's a really interesting idea, because it creates it's an interesting meta narrative about how the defense industry works, and it's interesting that that's where they went with this, and I'm kind of a little bit disappointed that people didn't understand that. But the movie's enjoyable. I do like it. I do like Iron Man. It's definitely more rewatchable than Iron Man 2. And I do enjoy this movie a lot more. But we'll wrap up there for today. Next week, we have Thor: The Dark World. One of the worst movies that they've made at Marvel Studios. I would say not the worst, but one of the worst that they've done at Marvel Studios. It's definitely bottom 5. But we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.